Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to be filming today's video for you guys. Today we are doing part 2 of our Releasing 10 plot summary. I'm so excited. I had so much fun doing the last video. I'm just excited to continue on with this series. So today we are picking up at part 13 of Releasing 10, which, if you're here for a refresher and you read the book, you know from this point on, a lot of issues going on at the moment. We're in for it today. We are going to end this video probably in tears, but we have to get to the end. So we are going to be picking up with part 13 of Releasing 10, and if you have not seen the first part of this video, I obviously suggest you go and you watch that one first, because this won't make any sense. It's also storming outside right now, so if you hear rain, thunder, it is pretty fitting for the events we're going to be discussing today with our cast here. And I realized in the last video I did not specify who these people are. That is what I'm going to explain to you first before we get into the plot. We have Lizzie Young, Hugh Biggs, Claire Biggs, Peter Biggs, Sinead Biggs, Catherine Young, Mike Young. He gets a little picture because he's the smallest man who ever lived. You know? The Scary Lady. We have Kiva Young. We have Joey Lynch, Shannon Lynch. This is the monster / Mark Allen. He doesn't get a face. He gets nothing. When it's up to me, he gets nothing. Gerard Gibson, Patrick Feely. This is another demon named Pierce O'Neill, and Katie Wilmot. So that is our cast of characters. Let us go on. Everyone say a prayer. Everyone buckle your seatbelts. Justice for my girl. Justice for Hugh Biggs. Justice for Gerard Gibson. Justice for Kiva Young. Let's get started. Okay, so we are picking up on March 3rd of the year 2000. Our girl Lizzie is not doing well at all. Everything bad about her life is back again. I don't know if you remember from the last video, right around New Year's Eve, everything was going amazing for Lizzie. She was in the best spot she had been in a long time. By March 3rd, everything bad is back. Catherine Young, her cancer is back. Her father's bad mood, that's back. Her suicidal ideations are back. Mark Allen is basically living with the Youngs to help Kiva deal with her mom's illness. Hugh Biggs has also spent a lot of time at the Youngs' house trying to help Lizzie through her mom's illness. Lizzie is having a hard time wanting to spend time with her mom and wanting to interact with her mom because she's so sick. But Hugh helps her be more hands-on with Catherine. He kind of like brings Lizzie to conversate with her mom while her mom is sick in bed. And he's a huge part why Lizzie and Catherine are as close as they are during this time, because Hugh jumps right into the mix with the Youngs and he's very hands-on with Catherine's health. Even with the nurses who come to take care of Catherine, Hugh is very hands-on with them. As we know, Hugh Biggs wants to be a doctor. And Lizzie has been spending every single moment she can at the Biggs house. So her best friend is there, Huey is there, her pseudo-parents are basically there. And we basically find out that Catherine is going to America in April to trial a new treatment plan for Catherine's cancer. They have plans to leave for Texas at the beginning of April. So then we move on to March 17th. It is St. Patrick's Day, and the whole star is at the Biggs house. They're all hanging out. Huey and Feely are playing video games. Claire, Gibbsy, and Lizzie are all doing a dance routine to Bye Bye Bye, which is so freaking funny. And we have a funny little interaction between Hugh and Feely where they're debating between blondes and redheads. Blondes and redheads. They basically come to the decision that Huey, he's gonna stick with blondes, and Feely, he's gonna stick with redheads. We'll see about that. Huey is super proud of Lizzie for basically not being like his father, who has taken to the attic. He now lives in the attic. We don't see a whole lot of Peter Biggs throughout the book, really at all. Really throughout the entire series, this man lives in his attic, growing out his beard, writing murder mystery novels. Hugh is basically over his dad, and he's just super proud of Lizzie for not being like his father, and when her life gets hard, she doesn't just lock herself away and disappear. She still participates in life, and he sees her having so much fun with Claire and Gibbsy. By the end, they're up in Huey's treehouse kissing. I am going to put a huge trigger warning right now. I will try to put a timestamp in the description or on the screen to know when to skip ahead. We are going to be talking about very, very heavy topics. Just a huge, huge, huge trigger warning. You could either skip ahead or I'd click off of this video right now because it's going to get very intense from here on out, especially for the next few minutes. We're going to be talking about April 4th, 2000. So Lizzie is awoken in the middle of the night by the monster. He is performing an at-home abortion on her, and Lizzie is screaming and crying in pain, and he just proceeds. She has no idea what's going on, but from the dialogue, we know that the monster has impregnated Lizzie and is now performing an at-home abortion with a wire hanger. And it is probably the most disturbing scene I've ever read. And the first time I read it, I was not ready for it. I can't even explain what that was like reading that scene for the first time. It was devastating. That's really the only word I could think of to describe that. So we are not going to get into the specifics of that scene, but just know that is what goes on April 4th, 2000. Huey comes to Lizzie's house after school because Lizzie didn't show up to school. So he comes over her house and finds her in her living room naked, saying that Kiva gave Lizzie the day off to pack because they are about to leave for that treatment that Catherine is going to be receiving for her cancer, and she has to go with Mark and Kiva. Her parents are already away. They left early, and she has been staying at the house with her sister, who has been letting Mark stay. She now has to go to America, and she's dreading it because she knows that her dad is going to be spending a lot of time with her mom at the hospital while Catherine receives the treatment, and Lizzie is going to be stuck alone with Mark and Kiva. When Huey finds her, he obviously takes care of her. Lizzie goes into the bathroom where she is profusely bleeding, and he doesn't really understand what's going on. Lizzie doesn't understand what's going on. Once Kiva gets home, he lays into Kiva, and he basically tells her Lizzie had a really bad nightmare because that's the way Lizzie communicated it to Hugh. Kiva basically brushes him off and says she has nightmares all the time. We hear her screaming at night all the time. She keeps the whole house awake with her screaming in the middle of the night. And they do nothing about it. These people, they do nothing about it. Now, Huey really wants Lizzie to come over to his house, but Lizzie doesn't really understand what's happening to her body right now, and she just wants to stay home. She wants to stay in bed. She doesn't go with Hugh. This is the next day. This is April 5th, 2000, when Lizzie is awoken in the middle of the night by 2 cars coming in front of her house. She hears screaming. She recognizes the voices to be Kiva and Mark. And here we go. Now, this is not unusual for Lizzie to hear her sister and Mark fighting. Apparently it's been happening quite a bit, but this is different. And Lizzie has this pit in her stomach that this is drastically different than all the fights that they have had before. We find out, based on the dialogue, that Kiva walked in on Mark abusing Gibbsy while Kiva was supposed to be babysitting. She walked in on Mark abusing Gibbsy. Kiva is trying to get into her house. She is screaming that Mark is a pedophile and that he is a rapist, and that she finally sees Mark for who he truly is. And Lizzie is petrified. She goes and hides in her, I think it's a wardrobe that she hides in, and she closes herself in there. She hears Kiva call Mark a monster, and it clicks in Lizzie's head that all the dreams she has of being abused are not actually dreams, and she was never delusional, and Mark is the monster. Now, the POV jumps to Hugh, and he gets home from being at Lizzie's house all day, and he is worried. He's very worried about Lizzie and her mental state, her well-being. It's literally keeping him up at night, his worrying for Lizzie. And he hears his door open, and Gibbsy walks in his room, and he is sobbing about how much he just wishes his father was there. Hugh doesn't understand what's going on, just that Gibbsy usually spends the night with Claire. When he has bad dreams or he sleepwalks, he's usually with Claire. So he's very surprised to see Gibbsy coming into his room, and Hugh is just holding him while he sobs. And we know what Kiva just walked in on. Huey doesn't know that though. And he even asks, does Kiva know you snuck over here? And Gibbsy says no. But we know there's things going on at the Young's house right now. And Huey's just being very reassuring to Gibbsy that even though he feels alone, he'll always have Huey. And that is part 13. We are now going to move on to part 14. So part 14 starts on April 24th, which is about 3 weeks later. We are in Hugh's POV. Huey is woken up in the middle of the night by his mother, Sinead. Sinead gives him the news that they just pulled Kiva Young's body out of the water. So Kiva Young is dead. He's thinking his mom must be mistaken because for the last 3 weeks, all of these guys were supposedly in America getting Catherine's treatment done. It's just so convenient that the call that Sinead received came from Mark Allen. Now, the next day we jump into Lizzie's POV. She's just having these memories of what she has just endured over the last 3 weeks. She's locked in Kiva's bedroom. During those 3 weeks, Kiva learns everything that Mark had been doing to Lizzie, even up to what happened the day before with the hanger. Kiva is apologizing to Lizzie, and all Lizzie wants to do is get out of Kiva's room. We're on April 27, 2000, and Hugh is thinking that the story that Mark has given the police makes 0 sense. Huey had been texting Lizzie almost every single day since he believed she left for America, but he has gotten no response from Lizzie for 3 weeks. We find out that according to Catherine and Mike, Kiva had been keeping in touch with their parents for the last 3 weeks. Now, I am just going to read straight from the book what Mark told the police about the night that Kiva Young died. The night she died, Mark told the detectives that when he woke up and found her gone, he had a bad feeling. That's when he woke up Liz, who, at their father's request, Kiva had been keeping heavily sedated, and loaded her into his car before heading out to search for his girlfriend. When he was questioned as to why a doctor or a family friend hadn't called for Lizzie at any time during those 3 weeks, Mark told the detective that Kiva was ashamed of her sister's disorder, that Liz was prone to frequent violent outbursts and had learned from her parents how to handle it in private.
Mark told the detectives that it was while he was driving around town searching for Kiva that he first noticed the sirens and flashing lights coming from the river. He said he felt instantly panicked and went straight to the bridge, thinking it might have something to do with Kiva, which was when he saw members of the Gardaí and fire brigade pulling his girlfriend from the river. After that, Mark shut down, saying that was all he could remember about the night and had become unwilling to speak about it since. There were so many unanswered questions, and Mark's version of events was all anyone had to go on because his girlfriend was dead and my girlfriend wasn't talking. Lizzie hadn't spoken since the night Kiva died. Not when the Gardaí asked for her statement, not when I arrived at the house, not when the doctors were called, not when her parents flew in from the States. Not a single word had passed from her lips since the night the Gardaí dredged her sister's lifeless body from the river. So Huey is trying his best to be there for Lizzie. Lizzie is not talking. She's not eating. She's crying in her sleep. She's devastated. She's heartbroken. He doesn't know what Lizzie has been going through the last 3 weeks. While their family is getting a million sympathizers coming to their doors, bringing them food, trying to be there for them, Huey is always just there for Lizzie. Then we move on to April 30th of the year 2000, and this Mike Young is essentially blaming his daughter for what Kiva did. He's asking Lizzie, why didn't you stop her? Just a reminder, at this point in time, Lizzie Young is 11 years old and her big sister passes at the age of 18. So, what he thinks an 11-year-old can do in this situation, I have no idea. He's wondering why Lizzie didn't do something to prevent this from happening. Oh my god. In the next scene, Lizzie is on her swing set when she's greeted by Gibbsy, and he knows what it's like to lose a sister. So Gibbsy really wants to be there for his best friend, but Lizzie has reverted to her non-speaking ways. Remember when she was little and she was dealing with trauma, she had selective mutism, and that is back in full force at this point in time. In her head though, she is screaming out to Gibbsy, and she's having memories of her sister telling her that if she gets this folded up note to Gibbsy and takes it to the police, then everything will be okay. But because Lizzie is not speaking, she cannot communicate that to Gibbsy. She is in her own head screaming and crying out to Gibbsy for help. Now, obviously, Gibbsy doesn't know that. Lizzie puts the note that Kiva was writing in Gibbsy's pocket. And it's almost as if Kiva knew that Mark's fate lies in the hands of both Lizzie and Gibbsy together. When we're in Lizzie's POV, she really wants to do all of the things her sister instructed her to do while they were locked in Kiva's room. She wants to tell Gibbsy that they should go to the police. She wants to tell an adult. She wants to not let Mark get away with this, essentially, but she has been taught her whole life to believe that all of these things that she sees, all these crazy, this scary lady that she sees watching her, this monster that comes to her at night, she has been groomed to believe that these things are not real. So she's even confused if what happened with Kiva was real or not. Lizzie mentally is not doing well, obviously. And she's remembering her sister promising that if she followed her instructions, that her and Gibbsy would be safe. But we know from the dialogue of Lizzie's dream memories that the monster has been threatening to hurt Huey if Lizzie says anything. Huey and Gibbsy are at Lizzie's house, but Huey had to leave to go get a suit for Kiva's upcoming funeral. And Hugh gave Gibbsy specific instructions to not leave Lizzie on her own. But while they're having their moment where Lizzie is in her own mind begging Gibbsy, she's very aware that he is the only other person who would understand what Kiva was talking about when Kiva told Lizzie to go to Gerard and go to the police together. Mark comes to the both of them while they're having that moment. And I'm going to read a little bit of this scene just so you kind of understand the mind manipulation that Mark is doing to both of these kids. You know you were holding your sister's killer, don't you? He mused, taking the seat on the swing next to mine. It's his fault this happened. I didn't dare look at him, keeping my attention trained on Gibbsie's back as he disappeared from my line of sight. If Kiva were here, she'd be so disappointed in you. He sighed heavily, hugging the person responsible for her death. Come back, I wanted to scream, but all I could do was tighten my hold on the ropes of the swing and pray he could somehow hear me. Please come back. He filled your sister's head with poison, he continued to say, tormenting my mind with self-doubt. It's her birthday today, and she's not here to celebrate it because of that little prick. So don't you ever forget who's truly responsible for her death. And Lizzie is having a memory of watching Mark throw her sister over the bridge. And Mark is holding her neck and basically making her watch her sister in the water. And as he's forcing her to witness this, he is whispering in her ear that this is all Gibbsie's fault. And Lizzie is pleading with Mark to help her, to go in and save her sister. And I'm just going to read what Mark says to Lizzie. There's nothing I can do to help her. Gibbsie saw to that when he filled her head with lies. He set me back down only to turn me around to face him. Say it, Munchkin. He gripped my throat and pushed me against the barrier. Tell me you understand what happens when you lie. He slammed me against the rail again. Tell me who's responsible for this. Who told lies and killed your sister? He did. And who's he? Gibbsie. So even though Kiva did everything she could to try and get Lizzie to bring Mark to justice, she hears about what happens to Lizzie, but we know Mark has had his claws all in Lizzie's brain since Lizzie was 5 years old, and he is able to get back right into Lizzie's head and manipulate her into believing that somehow, some way, this is Gibbsie's doing. Hugo Bossman comes back and sees Mark on the swing set with Lizzie. He immediately is not having it. Huey is very suspicious that for 3 weeks, he did not know where Lizzie was. He was calling her every day, texting her every day. She was not able to communicate, and he had no idea that she was just still at her house. And they were very suspicious that, according to Mark, Lizzie was having a mental breakdown and didn't call the Biggs family, who are known to help take care of Lizzie when Catherine and Mike are not able to. And he's very curious why Mark didn't make a phone call, or Kiva didn't make a phone call to his parents to ask for help with watching Lizzie. When Lizzie realizes that Huey is there, she jumps straight into his arms and starts shaking. She's obviously very upset for having to be around Mark. And here we learn that Huey has been a witness to all the mistreatment that Mark has been giving Kiva through the years. He says that Mark has treated Kiva like a piece of meat, whose sole purpose in life was to please Mark. Has seen Mark treat Kiva like a doormat, and Mark leaves Hugh with these very foreboding words that he is going to one day get what's coming to him. And he promises Lizzie that he will never leave her. Now we move on to May 1st of the year 2000, and this is Kiva Young's funeral. Lizzie and Huey end up seeing the scary lady at the cemetery. When Lizzie looks up, she sees the Gibson and Allen family greeting her parents and offering their condolences to Kiva's parents. And that is when Lizzie loses it. And she runs to her father, who is shaking Mark and Keith's hand, and she starts screaming that he is responsible for Kiva's death. Lizzie tells her father, tells her mother, says it in front of the entire cemetery. She says she witnessed Mark raping Kiva. Obviously, Mark is denying it, and Lizzie remembers in this moment what Kiva told her. She remembers that Kiva promised that if Lizzie got the letter to Gibbsie, they can work together and bring Mark to justice, basically. So Lizzie runs to Gibbsie, and she's gripping him and she's crying, sobbing, screaming, begging Gibbsy to help her. Now remember, on the swing set, Lizzie gave Gibbsy that folded up note that Kiva wrote before she passed away. Lizzie has no idea what's in that note, but she gave it to Gibbsy just a few days before. She gave that note to Gibbsy, and she wants Gibbsy to now help her expose Mark for who he is and what he does. Now, this is a side note from the other books, and when we get to those plot summaries, we're going to get more into it, but this is not a spoiler or anything. But we know from book 1, we know that Gibbsy has dyslexia, and at this point in time, he's only 11 years old. So he has a hard time reading and comprehending a lot of his work in school. So we know it was probably very difficult for Gibbsy to read and understand Kiva's note at this point in time. Gibbsy doesn't really know what's in that letter that Lizzie gave him. We actually don't even know if he read it right then and there. But Lizzie is expecting Kiva's words to be true, that she gave him the letter. And she's expecting him to say whatever it is that was in that note, letter, whatever you want to call it. And Gibbsy, unfortunately, cannot help her through no fault of his own. He cannot help her. And he tells her that in front of everyone. And Lizzie feels the most devastating, utter betrayal by Gibbsy, even though he doesn't mean to betray her. I cannot stress that enough. When she realizes that Gibbsy isn't going to help her, she looks at him and says, "Don't ever speak to me ever again." And that is the dissolution of the beautiful friendship we have established of Lizzie and Gibbsy's really sweet, really beautiful friendship. It's now over. It's never... you will see in upcoming videos, their relationship is never... It's done. It's done. Then we move to part 15 of Releasing 10. So we move to May 2nd of the year 2000, and Lizzie is having a lot of dream memories of Kiva and their time locked in Kiva's bedroom. Kiva is fighting with Mark and is talking a lot about Gibbsy in these dreams / memories. In this specific memory, Kiva is running up to Lizzie's bedroom and she bursts through the door, and we know Lizzie was hiding in her wardrobe. Kiva is looking for her, and when Lizzie jumps out of the wardrobe, Kiva asks the simple question, "Has Mark ever forced you to sleep with him?" And Lizzie is just worried that she's about to get in trouble. And Kiva breaks down, and she realizes what Mark has done to her little sister, and she's devastated. Then Lizzie comes back to present day, and I'm just going to read you what she says, because this is really like, this is... I'm just going to read you when Lizzie comes out of the dream, what she's thinking in her head. She says, "I tried to tell them, to make them all understand about the monster in my nightmares, the scary lady watching me in the shadows, and my sister's dead eyes. My thoughts were muddled, and I tried so hard to make it all make sense, but all my efforts of explaining came out as a jumbled mess of frantic pleas and frenzied accusations that nobody seemed to take seriously." So then we move on to May 3rd of 2000, and we are in Huey's point of view, and he hears Gibbsy's mom talking awful about Lizzie. Now, Gibbsy's mom, her name is Sive Allen, and she is the one that is married to Keith, who is Mark's father. Hearing his basically second mom, Gibbsy's mom, talk badly about Lizzie makes him snap. We find out that Huey has attacked Mark, and Mark has broken Huey's nose, and that causes this man in the attic to wake up and to show up for his child, and he breaks Mark's nose. So 10 points for Peter Biggs. Hugh gets himself banned from Gibbsie's house. There's a huge split in Huey's world where his girlfriend and the love of his life is on one side and his brother that he was raised with and his parents, his whole family, are on the other side. But Huey refuses to abandon Liz. So he cycles over to Lizzie's house and he knocks on the door to Mike Young and he tells Mike that he is on their side, that he believes Lizzie and he believes the Youngs, that Mark did something to Kiva to make her want to off herself, because that is what Mark says happened to Kiva that night, that she committed suicide, but obviously we know that that did not happen and he murdered her. Now, when Huey gets into Lizzie's house, he could hear Catherine Young sobbing and breaking down. And when he gets to Lizzie's bedroom, he sees Lizzie basically comatose on her bed. She is dosed to the high heavens. And he's just trying to coax her into consciousness because she's awake. Her eyes are open. But she is not there. And Lizzie lets him know that they had given her an injection and she can't move her neck. And she is explaining to Huey that she's afraid that she made everything up. Because again, Lizzie has been groomed to think that everything she believes is a delusion, a symptom of her bipolar disorder. And Huey reassures her that he believes her. And I'm just going to read you, we're doing a lot of reading out loud in this video, but I'm going to read you Huey's take on Lizzie's memory. And Huey says, "The events of that night were still a mystery, and I knew Liz had a lot more information inside her complicated mind than that lying bastard had given to the authorities. The only problem was Lizzie's memories were fractured fragments that needed to be carefully pieced together, and only time could restore them. How much time? I had no idea. But if I pushed her now for more than she was capable of divulging, she would slip back inside her mind and I would lose her again. I refused to do that because selfishly I wanted to keep her healthy more than I wanted to know the truth." And Lizzie then confides in Huey about a dream that she has had before where someone is pushing her head underwater and she believes that it was supposed to be Lizzie who passed away. Lizzie believes that this is an omen, that she was never supposed to be here and that she was supposed to die in water. And then Lizzie gives Hugh a warning that one day he's going to actually realize how broken Lizzie really is and that she is not good like he believes that she is. And she warns him that one day all of those things are going to cause Huey to leave her. She tells him that he should leave before the monster gets his hands on Huey. And then Huey tells Lizzie that he already went after Mark, which petrifies her, because we know that Mark has been threatening Hugh to Lizzie. And Huey basically tells Lizzie that if he ever found out that Mark has ever laid a hand on her, that he would kill him. It is May 10th, 2000, and we are in Lizzie's point of view, and she's having that dream where Kiva finds out what Mark had been doing to Lizzie this whole time, and Mark is saying just disgusting, awful things that I'm not going to repeat here. I'm not, you're not going to hear those words on this channel. Then Lizzie comes out of the dream and she explains how no one believed her. The police didn't believe her. None of the grown-ups believed her. And their disbelief in her made her doubt herself. So now she doesn't even really know if what she's remembering is true or if it's delusion. And then we move on to May 24th, 2000. It's been a month since her sister passed away, and Lizzie is noticing how quickly everyone is able to just move on when Lizzie's world has been destroyed with the loss of her sister. Lizzie now cannot be around Gibbsie because it reminds her too much of Mark, and with that she decides she can't go over to Huey and Claire's house anymore, even though this place has been a safe haven for her since she was 6 years old. She wants Huey to make a choice to be his friend or to stick by her, and she realizes that Huey cannot make that decision because Huey loves Gibbsie like a brother and they have a deep bond with being raised together. And Lizzie then realizes that eventually one day when they're old enough, she is going to be left behind by this group right here. She understands that out of their whole friend group, she is the expendable one, even though none of them believe that. Lizzie just believes that because she cannot be around Gibbsy anymore. And she believes that they would all choose Gibbsy over her. She knows that Claire is in love with Gibbsy and Hugh loves Gibbsy like a brother, and she just knows that she is going to be the one that will be left behind eventually. And then we have Lizzie explaining to Huey that she is crazy and her mind is crazy, and I'm gonna read you what Huey says. He says, "You couldn't be more wrong if you tried," he replied in a confident tone. "You're going to live a great life, Liz. A little complicated, sure, and maybe challenging at times, but it'll be a fucking great one." "I am?" "Yeah, Liz, you are." "How can you know that?" "Because I'm going to make sure of it." Moving on to the next day, which is May 25th of the year 2000, Hugh is explaining that Mark, Keith, and Sive are all swearing Mark's innocence. Poor Gibbsy is inconsolable. He pretty much can't even function at this point in time. He is devastated that he can't help Lizzie, and he doesn't understand why Lizzie even needs help. These are all children. They're not fully understanding each other. They're not communicating super well. And Gibbsy is just devastated that Lizzie thinks the way she does about him. And he does not defend Mark ever, but his parents do, or his stepdad and his mom do. Peter Biggs is standing on Mark's side because he wants to be on the side of his best friend's family. So he wants to stay on the side of Joe Gibson, and he believes in doing that. He needs to be on Mark's side. I promise you that's not what he would want. Our girl Claire and Sinead, they're remaining neutral down the middle. They both love Lizzie, but they both also love Gibbsy. We know that there is a huge investigation into Kiva's death going on right now, and they're considering Lizzie's accusations, but it's pretty clear no one's really believing anything that Lizzie says. And poor Hugh, his whole world is just split right down the middle, and he is having a really hard time understanding why Lizzie is so against Gibbsy, even though he believes her and he is defending her to literally everybody. He doesn't understand why Lizzie is using her sister's death against Gibbsy, but we know what he said to her. Huey is explaining that Lizzie is becoming more and more closed off, and she's getting more and more aggressive. Moving on to May 29th of the year 2000, Lizzie is having more dream memories of being locked in that room with her sister. She's having a memory right now of Kiva promising that she's not going to let anything happen to Lizzie, at least. We can see through Lizzie's memory that Kiva was getting more and more worried about her own safety, and Lizzie has resigned herself to the fact that no one is gonna believe her. She's kind of just accepting that at this point. Like, no one believes her and no one is going to be believing her. Lizzie is struggling with the fact that people are able to believe Mark because his words are coherent, and hers, she describes it as the ramblings of a sick child. Because of those thoughts, she is starting to have even stronger thoughts of suicide, thoughts of self-harm. If she can't help her sister and Gibbsy can't help her and no one is believing her, what is her point in really being here anyway? And then we move to June 1st, 2000, where we see Huey is trying to stop Lizzie from hurting herself, and he's promising her that they are going to get through this. Then we move to Lizzie's birthday, which is June 9th of the year 2000. So Lizzie is just now turning 12. She's having a memory of her sister where her sister was unconscious, and Mark was putting her sister in his car. We also have a sweet scene of Huey getting Lizzie a birthday gift, and this is probably the sweetest, most thoughtful gift. Huey gets her a charm bracelet. He has already handpicked a few charms for this bracelet. He has a zodiac charm for her birthday, obviously. She is a fellow Gemini. He got her a charm with a heart, and obviously that's because he loves her. A charm of a book, because he knows that one day she is going to write a book. That is something that she also, when she was younger, she was kind of doing in the background. I can't remember if I mentioned in the last video, but Lizzie loves to write stories and she likes to create books. She has her like dad staple the pages together and she like draws a cover for the books.
And so he knows that one day she's going to write a book, so he gets her the book charm. He got her a charm of a pill, so she remembers to take her meds every single day. He got her a broom charm. He calls Lizzie his little witch. The final charm on this bracelet is a life buoy. It's a reminder for Lizzie because she opened up to him about her thoughts about drowning and dying in water. And the life buoy is to represent Hugh because he'll never let Lizzie go under. And then Lizzie starts to break down from her grief, and Hughie is able to convince her to go outside with him. Later on, we jump to Hughie's POV, and when he gets home, he hears his mom on the phone with Catherine, and they cannot find Lizzie. And Hughie immediately knows where Lizzie headed. So he cycles over to Kiva's grave, and he finds Lizzie in a deep sleep on Kiva's grave. And he has this really sweet line where he talks about how he can feel the darkness that is surrounding Lizzie, and he's determined to be her light. Moving on to June 24th of the year 2000. This is the 2-month anniversary of Kiva Young's passing, and Hughie is over at Lizzie's house when this guy, Mike Young, calls Hugh down for something to eat. Even Mike admits to Hugh that he and Catherine would not have been able to get through the last 2 months without Hughie's help when it came to Lizzie. And in this scene, we see that Hughie is really understanding that Lizzie's dad just doesn't see her, basically. He's obviously devastated over the loss of his oldest daughter, and Hughie is just really struggling to understand how Mike can't see that Lizzie is in pain, and Mike basically leaves Lizzie to her pain. And if Hugh wasn't there, no one would really be there for Lizzie. A few days later, we move to June 29th, where unfortunately Gibbsy is now being bullied for Mark's actions. Remember, to everyone else, these two are stepbrothers. They live together. Their parents are married. When these accusations are coming up about Mark and the town is starting to hear about it because there's a huge investigation going on, then Gibbsy starts to get a lot of abuse from his peers. Gibbsy is really stressed about the fact that people are starting to think of him in that way, and Hughie is trying to reassure him that no one actually believes Gibbsy is what Mark is. Gibbsy is just begging Hugh not to tell his best friend, Johnny. Do we see him? Unfortunately, Johnny is real small down here. He will have his day front and center. I promise that's coming. Gibbsy is devastated that just Lizzie thinks badly of him. Someone who's been one of his best friends his entire childhood. He doesn't want her to think that of him, and he can't really help the fact that she does. Claire is there, and she's trying to console Gibbsy, and Hugh starts to ask Gibbsy what he believes Lizzie meant at the grave when Lizzie was begging Gibbsy for help. And Claire shuts that down right away. Claire and Hugh are very similar in this aspect, where if it's gonna upset Lizzie or Gibbsy, they will not let you bring it up. So Claire shuts that line of questioning down from Hugh. Hugh lets them know that he believes what Lizzie is saying about Mark. He reassures Gibbsy that he knows that he has nothing to do with it, but he does believe that Mark had something to do with it. And he lets Gibbsy know that he is going to be spending summer break with Lizzie, so he's not going to be around a whole lot for Gibbsy. Gibbsy is okay with that because he also loves Lizzie and doesn't want her to be alone. That same day, June 29th of 2000, when Lizzie learns that Hugh is going to be staying at her house, she's really excited and she's happy, but she is worried that Hugh being around her every day is going to expose how damaged her mind really is and how bad her thoughts are. She's worried it's going to make Hughie want to leave her. So now we are moving on to June 30th, and we have Hugh and his mom in a huge argument because obviously Sinead doesn't think this is a good idea to send her 12-year-old son to live with his 12-year-old girlfriend for the summer. But he basically uses when Gibbsie's situation with Claire against her. And he basically says when Joe and Bethy died, Gibbsie basically lived in the house with them for 6 months. And so he's kind of persuading his mom. His mom is noticing that they're getting a little bit older, that their feelings for each other are growing into something more. Sinead is also worried because Lizzie, even though she loves Lizzie and she's never held it against her, she's worried about her son being in that environment kind of where Lizzie is obviously not doing well after her sister's passing. And so Hugh gets really offended that his mom would use Lizzie's mental illness against her in this time of grief for her and her family. And even Sinead agrees that she believes that Lizzie believes all the accusations that Lizzie is making against Mark, but Sinead wants to remain neutral on it. And there's this really cute and funny moment where Huey basically tells his mom that Lizzie is the only girl he's ever gonna love, and his mom was like, yeah, okay, Hugh, you're 12, like, calm down. And Huey is like, I hope one day when I come back to this house and Lizzie's my wife and I bring our kids with us that you apologize to me. And she's rolling her eyes thinking, dramatic. Huey is dead serious. Huey is dead serious. To close off this part of the book, he is frustrated with his mom because she won't take his side when it comes to Mark. He basically promises his mom that he will never let this go. Claiming 10, where are you? Where are you, claiming 10? Then we jump to the end of the summer. We're at August 4th, 2000, and Lizzie has spent the summer holed up at her house with Hugh, and she's starting to notice that these feelings that she has for him are growing deeper and they're becoming more complex and they're becoming evolved. Yeah, let's go with that. She was super convinced that when Hugh really understood and saw her mental illness and her grief up close and personal, that he would leave. But she said that the nightmares didn't scare him. The nurses for her mom that are constantly at the house didn't scare him off. She realizes that she would withstand the agony of her own mind if it meant that she got to keep Hugh Biggs next to her. That all the bad she would deal with as long as they were together. What could possibly go wrong? We also learned that Huey is about to start his first year at TOMMEN College. Welcome to TOMMEN. No, I'm American. I'm gonna sound stupid when I say this, but Lizzie is really upset that she's gonna be starting 5th class when she should be starting first year with Huey at TOMMEN. We also learn that Lizzie is starting to kind of process the abuse she suffered from Mark because she was too young to really understand what was happening while it was happening. She is now old enough, and she obviously had talked to her sister about it before her sister passed. And she is realizing what he actually did and the way it is now affecting her feelings and her development, basically, is the way we're gonna put it. That's safe for YouTube. She's just noticing how that abuse is now being processed, even though she doesn't know if it's real or not. This is very confusing to say out loud. And Huey is noticing her self-harm scars. Anytime he turns away, the first thing Lizzie does is reach for razors and tries to hurt herself. Then we're jumping to the very end of summer. This is August 28th, 2000. Hugh spent the summer sleeping on a blow-up mattress in Lizzie's room. Every night, she woke up screaming, crying, sobbing in her sleep. And the first few nights, he waited for maybe her mom to come. Her mom's a little too sick though, so he was sure that her father would come and try and console his grieving, mentally ill 12-year-old daughter. And after those first few nights, when he realized they just leave her in there to scream all night, he started to take it upon himself, and he gets in the bed with her and tries to coax her out of her nightmares. And he's starting to also notice that she's talking in her sleep, like she's having a conversation in her sleep. I wonder if that will come back. And he believes when he is hearing her have these conversations in her sleep, he feels pulled to try and understand what she's saying. He feels like her mind is trying to tell him something. We know August 28th, this is going to be the last night he's going to be able to spend the night in Lizzie's room, because he has to go back home now because school is about to start. And when she wakes up, we learn that that nightmare that he just witnessed was Lizzie seeing her sister laying on a bed and crying. And Huey promises he will always keep Lizzie safe from the monster. Now remember, Huey only believes the monster to be this thing in her mind that comes and gets her while she's sleeping. He interprets the monster as the nightmares. And then we move on to part 16. Now, part 16 starts on August 30th of the year 2000, and this is where we see our band of boys together. This is where we see the boys of Tommen. So we have Huey, Gibbsy, Johnny, Feely, and they have really funny, cute banter. Their first day of school, they're in a new school. They've been in an all-boys school their entire lives, and this is the first year that they are in a co-ed school, and they are overwhelmed by teenage girls, basically. Then we meet someone else. We've met him before, but now he is significant. We meet Pierce O'Neill, and he gets to stay all the way down here, right under Mark Allen. That's where I like him. Pierce and Hugh have a very tumultuous relationship, and it doesn't get better. We've seen them in the last video. We talked about them fighting each other a few times. Now Pierce is giving Hugh a whole lot of lip, and Huey shuts it down. Pierce is confused as to why Huey wouldn't try to get with other girls even though he has a girlfriend. And Pierce is just baffled by this, that he's able to basically cheat on Lizzie and Huey doesn't want to. He's like, why would I go looking for something else when I already have the girl I want? And Pierce just starts giving him hell. He's making fun of him because Huey's in love. I wonder why that would matter to Pierce. Now we also have Lizzie. She is starting school. She's starting 5th class, and she is in school with her good friend Shannon, who's back, and Shannon is now up on the wall. So she's in class with Shannon and Claire, but they're both younger than her, not significantly younger than her. Lizzie is 12. Her class's age range is 10 to 11, and Lizzie is 12 going on 13, so she feels very out of place, and she's like thinking to herself, what do I have in common with 10-year-olds? Also, Lizzie is, remember, hyper genius Lizzie. She is not interested in school because it's not stimulating to her mind, and so she is often bored in school. Her friends are learning things that she already can grasp and understand. At the end of this chapter, we get Huey calling Lizzie, and they're talking about their first day of school, and we learn Hugh, Gibbsy, Feely, and Johnny, they all make the rugby team. Then we jump to November 23rd of the year 2000, and Lizzie and Huey have taken up swimming for Lizzie's mental health. Huey is on the swim team and he loves to be in the water, he loves to swim, he loves to cliff dive. So he uses swimming as a way to help Lizzie's mental health. It's a bit of exercise, it's a bit of getting her out of the house and taking her to do some type of like physical activity. They go weekdays after school. Hugh is planning on working at this pool. I'm pretty sure it's like attached to a hotel or a country club, and they're being very cute and they're being very flirty. Then when they're done swimming, They're walking through the parking lot of the hotel or the country club, and Huey is talking about how proud he is of Lizzie for being able to go back in the water even though her sister jumped off of a bridge and they had to basically fish her out of the water. He's very impressed because we know Gibbsy, and we're going to learn this in other books. I'm just going to give this little tad bit of Taming 7 lore just for context of this scene. Gibbsy cannot swim. He can't go in the water. He's petrified of it. I mean, the water literally killed Gibbsy, so like understandably so, but he is never comfortable in water again. And we learn from Lizzie's point of view that Lizzie isn't afraid of drowning because she really doesn't care if she lives or dies. I'm sure if you knew the context of it, would not be super impressive anymore. When they're done swimming, they're walking through the parking lot and they spy crazy lady staring at them, watching them in the parking lot, and Huey is like, there she is, I see her again. This is the third time Huey has seen her. He's seen her when Kiva was babysitting, he's seen her at the funeral, Kiva's funeral, and now he's seeing her at the pool. So this lady is following Lizzie around, and Hugh is like, call the cops, let's get the police on the line. And Lizzie is basically telling him like, they're not gonna believe you. You can call them, but they're not gonna believe you. So Hugh gets the police and he's trying to explain to the police like, this woman is stalking us, and the police don't believe him. They're like, if you saw a woman just standing there looking at you, it's not against the law to look. And he's like, well, this is harassment, this is stalking. Can you help us at all here? No, they can't. Lizzie knows that this woman will always be watching her. This woman has been watching her since she was little, but Lizzie has always been convinced that this woman is a figment of her imagination. It's scaring her and her family, basically, that Hugh believes her. Then we move to New Year's Eve of the year 2000, and Hugh feels really guilty because ever since that situation happened with the police and with the scary lady, their parents do not let them go to the pool anymore, so they're missing out on that time. And Lizzie has been really down mentally. And Hugh has this interesting thought where he says they don't believe him about the scary lady, but they won't let them go to the pool now in case someone is following them. Kind of the same way how his parents are on Mark's side, but they won't let Claire go over to Gibbsy's house while Mark is still living there. He thinks it's like, make it make sense kind of deal. I thought you believe Mark is innocent. Why does it make sense in your brain to keep Claire away from Mark? Maybe you do believe Mark did something to Kiva. Hugh and Lizzie have been spending New Year's Eve together literally since 1994. Hugh promises that they're going to spend every New Year's Eve together forever. Moving on. Lizzie opens up to Huey about a memory that she has of Mark hurting Kiva. She's kind of explaining to Hugh this memory of Mark holding Kiva down and hurting her. He was trying to ask her questions like the night that she died, and Lizzie says it happened a lot of nights. Remember, Huey doesn't fully understand that for 3 weeks they were alone with Mark. Huey promises Lizzie that he is going to do something about it, that she has finally opened up about what was going on while she was with Mark and Kiva, and he promises that he is going to take action and do something about it. Then we move to January 4th of 2001, and Lizzie no longer trusts her brain. She doesn't trust her memories. She doesn't trust her feelings. Hugh ended up telling Lizzie's parents the memory that Lizzie shared with him, and Lizzie has to be questioned by the police now. They basically shame her for wasting their time. Lizzie finds out that Gibbsy's mom has filed a restraining order against Lizzie, and the victims listed on this restraining order are Gibbsy and Mark. Lizzie makes a promise to this officer that she's speaking to that she will never come in and they'll never see her ever again. Then we jump to April 7th of 2001 and we are in Huey's POV. Gibbsy went to Dublin with Johnny Kavanagh. Feely and Huey are suggesting to Claire that she should now spend some time with Lizzie with Gibbsy gone. And this is when Claire opens up to them and basically says, at school, Lizzie doesn't talk to anybody anymore. And she doesn't really know what to say to Lizzie, especially because Lizzie hates Gerard, who is Claire's best friend. Huey is feeling really guilty for getting the police involved with both the Scary Lady situation and then the Mark and Kiva situation. He starts to understand that if he hadn't tried to make it right and tried to get the authorities involved, Lizzie wouldn't be mentally spiraling right now. Then we move to Lizzie's 13th birthday, so this is June 9th of 2001, and Huey has gotten her a new charm for her charm anklet, and he got her an infinity sign. Then we move on to part 17. Now, I'm gonna be honest, we're gonna skim pretty quickly through part 17 because it's basically just Hugh and Liz. They are 13 years old at this point and they are getting very familiar with each other. And we're just not gonna discuss that here on my channel. It opens up on August 7th of 2002 and we learn Lizzie is going to make an effort. It is Claire's birthday and Claire's having a birthday party and she is going to go to the Biggs house for the first time since Kiva died back in 2000. And this is a very big deal because she used to live there most weekends and this is her first time back in over 2 years. Huey has promised that Gibbsy is going to stay away from her. Now, when they get to the party, Huey is noticing all of his friends, specifically these two. He mentions Pierce by name and Feely by name, and they're both checking Lizzie out. Isn't that funny? I wonder if that's gonna come back in other books. I have a feeling it will. We have Gibbsy and Claire running off to the treehouse together. It's someone's bright idea to play spin the bottle. And Pierce spins and it lands on Lizzie. I wonder where this is going. Lizzie refuses and she gives us a classic Lizzie cut down. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this or I didn't make this clear, Releasing 10 is the 6th book in this series. This is a prequel book, so we know that this chart is going to change by the time we make it to book 1, which is Binding 13. We know Lizzie as the Viper from all those first 5 books. Lizzie is the Viper. She will cut you down with her tongue. And this is the first instance in the timeline where Lizzie gives us a classic Lizzie cut down moment, and I was clapping and cheering. I said, there is my Viper. She makes a very public display of why she's not going to kiss Pierce and why Huey is the only boy Lizzie's gonna kiss. And this very public display of affection that occurs between these two in front of the whole group of friends, Claire ends up seeing it from the treehouse and she comes down and she is not okay with seeing her best friend and her brother interact in this way. And Claire goes off on Lizzie. Hugh is going off on Claire. And then Gibbsy cuts in. Poor Gibbsy cuts in and is actually siding with Lizzie and Hugh. Lizzie can't handle that, and Lizzie then starts to lose control of her mind, and then Huey ends up having to bring her up to his bedroom, and he goes into her bag and he gets, I'm pretty sure it's some type of sedative. It's not specified what pill he has to give her to calm her down because she goes into hysterics. And he talks about how last summer, when it was her sister's, I think it was around her sister's 1-year anniversary, Lizzie stopped taking her medicine and went into a state of mania, and she tried to hang herself with a horse rein It led to him with a broken arm and her in an extensive hospital stay in the psych ward. And so he now understands that when Lizzie gets like this, she has to be medicated. And so he medicates her to calm her down. And when Lizzie is in these frames of mind, she is having memories of Mark. Not just Mark and what he did to Kiva, but memories of the abuse that she suffered by the hands of Mark. And so she goes into this kind of like tornado of thoughts, and it's not good. And after this happens, we have this really beautiful scene of Sinead comforting Lizzie. And remember, Sinead has been like a second mom to Lizzie. Sinead is everybody's mom. Sinead, I made a video about this on my TikTok, but Sinead Biggs is my favorite parent in all of Boys of Tommen, and she has this really beautiful moment with Lizzie, and I'm just gonna read it to you so you kind of can get an idea on the dynamic that Lizzie and Sinead have. But this is really Sinead as a mom to all of these kids. So it starts with Sinead saying, "I know you're hurting, sweetheart," Sinead said as she drove me home from the party. "If there were anything I could do to take this weight from your shoulders, I would do it in a heartbeat." I didn't have anything left inside of me to answer. Instead, I slumped against the window and stared lifelessly at what I had no idea. My head was spinning and the meds were kicking in, making my body grow warm and my head light. "I want you to know that you are always welcome in our home," she continued, reaching across the console to take my hand in hers. "I love you like a daughter. And I always will." She squeezed my hand. "You have a place in my heart and that will never change." I'm gonna cry. Tears trickled down my cheeks. Sniffling, I squeezed her hand back. That's my girl. When Huey gets back inside, he immediately goes off on Claire, unfortunately, and Gibbsy is the first one to notice, and he even says to Hugh, "I have been grieving my sister and my dad. I know grief." The reaction that Lizzie just had was not that of grief. So we see that even Gibbsy is noticing that there's something else between the dynamic with these four that is not just he hurt my sister hurt herself, and I'm grieving. Gibbsy is kind of getting an idea that there's something going on with Lizzie. Then we jump to August 31st of 2002, and Lizzie is not cooperating with her doctors. And again, we're doing a lot of reading in this video, but I'm going to read to you Lizzie's take on the situation with the doctors and why she is no longer cooperating with her treatment plan. And the doctor asked Lizzie, "Have you always been this mistrustful?" Because she's not getting anything out of Lizzie. This is what Lizzie's thinking in her mind when she's presented with this question. "There were moments in time, back when I was a little girl, that I thought I could be happy. Back then, contentment felt attainable, but darkness had a way of sweeping innocence up in the riptide. That's what happened to my innocence. To me. Everything went dark once the monster crawled into my bed. There were only glimmers of hope, fleeting flecks of sunshine that teased my soul, until she died and took my last flicker of trust to the grave with her. It had been 2 years, 4 months, and 6 days since they pulled my sister's body from the water. It had been 2 years, 2 months, and 8 days since he left town. 853 days of being not believed, and this doctor was questioning my ability to trust. What a fucking joke." When Lizzie's mom picks her up from this appointment, she has an interesting question to ask Catherine. She asks Catherine if they had ever lived anywhere else, because Lizzie is starting to have memories of being on a plane when she was young. Her mom denies it, but if you remember back to my last video, there is a scene where Kiva was explaining to Lizzie their family dynamic, and Kiva promised Lizzie that when she was older she would explain everything to her, because look at this, these two are not giving her anything. We also find out that Hugh for the last week has been away at swim camp, And he's not going to be back till Sunday, which means they're not going to get to see each other until Lizzie's first day at Tommen. We are about to go into Lizzie's first year, which for US terms, her freshman year. And Lizzie is realizing how wrong it is that her parents really rely on Hugh for Lizzie's mental health. And she's thinking back to that first anniversary of her sister's passing when Lizzie went off of her meds. She doesn't remember what caused her to go off of her meds, just that she one day stopped taking them. And she went into full-blown mania. And she really appreciates that Huey ended up saving her life, but she's also recognizing how not fair that was to him. So she is very scared of getting back to that place of mania. And her mom basically make this agreement that Tommen is going to be a fresh start for Lizzie. So now we are moving on to September 2nd of the year 2002, and it's Lizzie's first day of Tommen, and the school is described to look like a castle. And we learn that they give out 6 scholarships every year. I wonder if that's gonna come back. You know it will. Lizzie and Claire are starting Tommen together, but they're both very worried about their good friend Shannon, who is starting school at BCS because her family cannot afford to send her to Tommen. She's going to the public school and they are going to the private school, and they're both very worried about Shannon and how she's going to be with the other kids at school. Claire bumps into Gibbsy, and that immediately makes Lizzie turn and go in the opposite direction. And Lizzie bumps into a group of older girls, and we meet a girl named Bella, who I wasn't even going to mention her in this video, but since we're going to do all the books, I figure why not introduce Bella now. Bella is an older girl who is not nice. That's how we'll describe her for now. She's this very mean older girl. These older girls are blocking Lizzie's way, and she just pushes right through all of them because now she's mad because she saw Gibbsy. Bella offers to take Lizzie under her wing. She says we could use someone with a mouth like that in our little group, and she asks Lizzie, do you want to sit at the big girls table? And Lizzie basically tells her hell no. So Lizzie starts to walk to the first year's locker area when she is pulled into a staircase by someone we know. It's Hugh Biggs, and Hugh is wearing his rugby jersey. That's all for that we're gonna get into right now because we don't need to worry about what they're doing in the staircase. And then we jump to Huey's point of view, where he is confiding in Feely about how he's scared because him and Lizzie are getting more physical, and Feely is basically like, go play your tiny violin because I don't feel bad for you. Hugh is stressing out that he wants Lizzie so much. Feely pulls Johnny Kavanaugh into the conversation, and then we get into way too much teenage boy talk that is none of my business. Moving on to September 27th, 2002, Lizzie has discovered this old library in the school. So they have a regular library in the basement, which everyone is familiar with. She finds a special library that was used during the War of Independence, I want to say it is. There's this like little room where Lizzie can go to kind of like get away from everyone. And so this becomes Lizzie's special little hideout. Then we move to October 5th of 2002, and we're in Huey's point of view. He is in Lizzie's bedroom, and Lizzie is trying to seduce him when she's picking out an outfit. And then they make the decision they want to lose their virginity to each other on Lizzie's 16th birthday. Then we move on to the next Halloween party. Instead of his mom being the one to host the party, this time it's his grandfather, who we know loves Lizzie Young. Huey's grandfather is so freaking funny. He's teaching Huey how to take shots, and this is his first time he's drinking underage, and it's at the hands of his grandfather, which I love. Lizzie and Claire are dressed up as Mario and Luigi. Then someone
dressed up as Batman, comes over and starts hitting on them. And Lizzie is very aggressive and she basically tells him, you get away from us. He starts to flirt with Claire, and Lizzie is super protective of Claire in this instant. And Claire kind of gets uncomfortable and calls Lizzie mean and tells her she can't be acting like that. And Lizzie's trying to explain to Claire that naive girls like Claire become prey to boys like that. I am going to read you this interaction that Claire and Lizzie have, because neither one of them are all that happy about who the other is into or partnered up with or dating, you know? Claire wants to go hang out with Gibbsy, but she doesn't want to leave Lizzie. Lizzie reassures her that she understands she loves Gibbsy and she is a-okay with Claire going to hang out with Gibbsy, but she can't participate when Claire is around him. And it makes Claire feel really guilty for going off on Lizzie for making out with Hugh at her birthday party that past August. And I'm just going to read you this interaction that they have. And Claire is feeling like a mean girl, so Lizzie says, "You have never been a mean girl, Claire, and I'm never going to stop hanging out with you. I promise," squeezing her hand. "You're the Mario to my Luigi." I know, she hurried to concede, but I think it had more to do with Hugh asking you to be his girlfriend and Gerard not asking me, which I know you probably don't want to hear me say, she added with a wince. "Sorry." "It's okay," I forced myself to say, because I couldn't project my pain onto her. "I can't be the friend you confide in about Thor, but I will always be the friend in your corner." Her eyes lit up with excitement. "And I can't be the friend you talk to about my brother, because that's just ew. But I will always be the friend in your corner too." "Okay then," I smiled. "It's a deal. It's a double deal," Claire squealed, bouncing from foot to foot excitedly. "But not a double date." "No," I confirmed, shaking my head. "Never a double date." And Lizzie, in her mind, resigning herself to the fact that one day she knows she will lose Claire the same way she knows she's going to lose Huey to Gibbsy, because the Bigs and Gibbsy, they are thick as thieves. She views herself as the expendable one. So then Lizzie goes in search of Hugh and she finds him taking the shots with his grandfather. And when Huey notices that Lizzie is watching, he tells his grandfather that he would never be thick enough to let Lizzie go. And his grandfather is very excited to see that they're still together. And Hugh assures his grandfather that Lizzie is his one. And then they get drunk and they walk in on Feely with a girl on Huey's bed. And Huey thanks Lizzie for coming home, and he explains to her that she belongs to him. She belongs in this house, in that bed with Huey. And it's just a very sweet, very cute moment. And it's honestly so relieving, the scene, because it took her a long time to be able to come back over to Huey's house after her sister's death. The scene turns very hot and steamy, but Huey is always quick to put a stop when they are taking it a bit too far, because he is very scared of taking advantage of Lizzie the way Mark took advantage of Kiva. Then we move on to December 21st, 2002. And Lizzie is starting to enter a stage of hypersexuality. Hypersexuality is a symptom of her bipolar disorder, and she's constantly worried that this part of her illness makes her bad, and she's trying to do right by Hugh. And Huey is assuring her that it's normal and that it's a lot of kids their age are dealing with that, but it's different for Lizzie because it goes hand in hand with her mental illness. And whenever she starts to get hypersexual, she remembers that the doctors had explained to her that that's usually a sign of a manic episode on the horizon. And that really scares her, because remember, in her last manic episode, she tried to kill herself with a horse rein, and Huey got hurt trying to save her. Then we move on to Christmas, where Lizzie unfortunately explains that since her sister's death, holidays have not been the same, and she's used to spending the holidays listening to her parents fight. Then we move on to January 14th of 2003, And Liz is at Hugh's house and she's with the Fab Five. The star is back, ladies and gentlemen, just like the old days. We see how Sinead has a really cute banter with each and every one of these kids. Lizzie is explaining how hard it is to be in the room with Gibbsy, and every time she's in the room with Gibbsy, she ends up kind of trying to hurt herself. She'll bite the inside of her cheek until it bleeds. She'll scratch at herself. The feeling she gets when she's around him is very uncomfortable and she wants nothing to do with him, but she does it for Huey because she doesn't want Huey to have to decide between the two of them. So she tries to make the effort to be around Gibbsy, even though it makes her feel not great, but she does it for Hugh. So we move on to April 15th of 2003. Huey is about to take his junior certs, which are like, again, his finals, his exams. Lizzie is there studying with him and she's fascinated by the way Huey's mind retains information and she starts quizzing him. Then we move on to May 31st of 2003. We see Hugh is a little annoyed with Lizzie and Claire in his room. Lizzie will not be affectionate with Huey in front of Claire out of respect for her friendship with Claire. She does not subject Claire to see her and Huey all over each other because it makes Claire uncomfortable. And then later on we have Sinead reminding Huey that he has to be a gentleman because they're both very young and Lizzie's a little bit younger than him, to not take it too far. Then it's the day before Lizzie's birthday, so it's June 8th, 2003. And this is probably my favorite scene. This is where Hugh takes Lizzie on a little birthday date to the coast and they go cliff jumping. She gets on Huey's back and they dive off the cliff. And she talks about the adrenaline rush and how amazing it feels and how she feels like she's been missing out all these years while he's been cliff diving and she's been sitting on the shoreline. And they have this really beautiful day where they're just happy and in love and they're free and they're together and everything for this one moment in time feels right in the world between the two of them. They're just deliriously happy and they end their day with ice cream and Hugh just giving Liz these eyes, explaining what a good day it had been and how in love with her he is. Then we move on to June 19th of 2003, which would be my 5th birthday. Shout out to me. And we're in Huey's point of view and the boys are done with exams and we learn that Gibbsy actually takes all of his tests separate from the group and they're all aware of Gibbsy's dyslexia at this point. So he needs a little bit of extra help taking his exams. And they're all just having their very cute banter, all the boys. He also takes his exams with an aide to help read the questions and transcribe the questions for him. And they are all going to the disco later on for the end of year celebration. Then we go to Lizzie's point of view. Lizzie hates these kinds of dance parties. Tonight is deciding to put in a lot of effort for Hugh. She's getting all dressed up with Claire and they're doing makeup and hair and nails and the whole shebang. It is very cute. And when they get in line for the disco, Lizzie and Claire hear other girls in their school talking about getting with Gibbsy and Johnny, which is hilarious. And Lizzie is basically ready to fight. She hears these girls talking about how they're gonna make a move at Gibbsy, and even though Lizzie and Gibbsy are no longer, she rides hard for the Claire Gibbsy dynamic. Even though she's afraid of losing Claire to Gibbsy, she is willing to fight with other girls to make sure Claire keeps her man. Then we move on. Hugh is very, very drunk and they start to get very steamy on the wall. My hands are turning green from this wand, but they get very steamy from the wall, which is where couples go to hook up. And that's exactly what happens. Then we move on to August 23rd of 2003. And Hugh has this really beautiful inner monologue where he's talking about how in love with Lizzie he is. And he's thinking back through all the years and how their relationship has really changed since they were kids. But in every different phase of life, he always loves her and they are always going to be together. They've always been together. He's explaining how their relationship has evolved and now they're teenagers, and we all know what happens with that. And he makes it very clear that Lizzie is the only girl he ever intends on being with. In this scene, it's also the end of the summer and there's going to be an end of summer bash, and they both get very drunk at this party. At this party, they get very steamy basically, and they almost end up taking it too far, right? They almost end up taking it too far, to the point of no return. That's what we'll call it. They almost take it to the point of no return. By the end of the moment, Lizzie quietly asks Hugh not to regret her, and he says he never would. And we see in Lizzie's point of view, when this situation is happening, this is now a positive sexual experience for Lizzie, and she is very worried and confused about trying to process what we know Mark did to her. And she compares a lot of it to how she feels safe with Huey and how it's different. This is a very different type of dynamic she has with Huey than ever with the monster. Then the next day is August 24th of 2003, and we are in Huey's point of view, and they end up deciding that they both want to do it so damn bad that they are switching the date. So instead of it being Lizzie's 16th birthday, they're switching the date to Huey's birthday, which is coming up in a few weeks. Then we move on to August 30th of 2003, and they have another very steamy scene in the pool sauna. We're in Lizzie's point of view. Lizzie is starting to realize how deep her feelings for Hugo. She explains in her mind about the detailed plan they have for their future. So I'm going to read you that because it's one of my favorite parts. She says, "We had a detailed plan carved out. One that consisted of us both attending Trinity with Hugh studying medicine while I worked on an undergrad in English studies. We would rent a small apartment on the outskirts of the city and survive on beans on toast until we establish ourselves in our chosen careers. Money would be tight for the first few years, with me taking on the role of primary breadwinner until my boyfriend attained residency and the real money started to roll in. From there, Hugh would take on the role of provider while I concentrated on writing my first novel. While I wasn't privy to when Hugh would ask me to marry him, we both agreed to have the first of 2 children before 30, because we both wanted to be homeowners before we had a family, and with Hugh's insistence on being married beforehand, I predicted the ring would arrive somewhere between my 23rd and 25th birthday." So they have a plan. My guys are getting out of here. My guys are hitting the road. We are going to have to end this video here. Unfortunately, I wanted this to be in 2 parts. It's going to have to be in 3 because this video is getting so long. And then we could move on to saving 6. So I am going to have to end this video here. I will put a rush on filming and getting part 3 up. I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. This has been such a fun project to do, where we talk about my favorite series of all time. I love talking Boys of Tommen. It is literally my favorite thing to do online. And this has been really hard to do, having to go back through releasing 10. This book means so much to me. Y'all have no idea. I have been like studying this book since the day I started reading it back in May of 2025. This book has like changed something in me. I am so happy to be doing this, even though a lot of these scenes are so hard to get through and read. I really hope people who have decided that they would not be able to read this book, I hope this series of videos I've been doing has been helpful, and maybe you're getting a glimpse into how incredible the Boys of Tommen series is. We know we're getting a next one soon, and it's another Lizzie and Huey book, and I'm so excited. I have been literally, I check socials every single day looking for the next book. So I'm so excited to be talking about this book, and I'm excited to get into the other ones, but today we are gonna have to wrap it up. And I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. If you're interested, all of my other social medias are always in the description box, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.